The views and opinions expressed by the guests, callers, and hosts on this and all Rense Radio Network programs do not necessarily reflect or agree with those of the network, its commercial sponsors, its radio station affiliates, or Internet broadcast platforms. In these controversial times, we believe the First Amendment and freedom of the press are absolutely essential to the survival of our nation. Thank you. And now, enjoy the program.
Okay, let's get going. We have a busy evening tonight. I'm on the telephone right now. We have a power outage here in our West Coast offices, so we'll be on good old-fashioned telephone for the first, we'll see how long. We have so many things have happened since Gerald Celente was last on the program 4 weeks ago. I mean, it is really a torrent, a deluge of things. I don't even know where to start to try to summarize them. Just a few of the highlights. If you were listening to what they call news at the top of the hour, you heard another story about employment in this country, employment statistics, and that some employers may actually be able to hang on to staff and maybe be thinking about even hiring a few. It's all voodoo, folks. It's all lies. It's all employment voodoo statistical crap. Nothing more, nothing less. Obama, the dictator-in-chief, for some shocking reason, kind of at the last minute forgot that he had been promising to pull all our American boys and girls out of Afghanistan, and he's going to leave them in Afghanistan indefinitely, 10,000 of them. Can you figure out why? Is he there to protect the Constitution and to preserve the Republic here? No, he's there to protect and preserve the opium crop, ultimately. Don't kid yourself. Obama, of course, now has discovered the Australian gun control laws and says, golly gee, they'd fit in just perfectly over here. Of course, a lot of folks, I think, would disagree with that. That's why, DHS has bought over 4 billion rounds of hollow point 40 caliber ammunition. Even the U.S. Department of Agriculture is getting ready to go to war against us. We are the enemy. And then the really good news was, I guess yesterday, the day before, that Obama and Michelle, or whatever it is, are going to buy a house in Asheville, North Carolina, because coincidence of coincidences, one of North Carolina's senators is going to be retiring in 2016. So your choice as to which one of the Obamas is going to run for that seat could be Michelle. Think of Hillary moving to New York. Same kind of thing. All right, well, we have then the other side of the world, the specter of Ukraine, actually demanding of Vladimir Putin that they be paying far less for their natural gas, that they have a bill outstanding in the amount of $4.5 billion to Russia right now. So, I mean, it gets crazier. Not only did Vladimir Putin and Sergei Lavrov promise the Russian-speaking, Russian-sympathizing folks in eastern Ukraine that they would come to their aid if they began to be killed by the evil Zionist lunkies in Kiev, but that's happened and Putin hasn't shown up. So something's up. he's sacrificing a lot of people over there, and they're not happy about it. But anyway, the point is, above and beyond all the things I mentioned, and I could mention dozens more, the biggest story in recorded history continues to unfold. Are you hearing about it nightly in the news? No. Are you hearing about really anywhere but here? No. And that story, of course, is Fukushima, continuing to destroy the Pacific Ocean, the air we breathe, the animals we rely on for sustenance, those who eat animals, I don't, the crops, the fruits, the vegetables, the flora, the fauna, the insects, all being impacted with deadly radiation being released around the clock in enormous amounts from this man-made catastrophe. Calamity, it's a disaster, and then some. Hello, Gerald. How are you? Forgive my rambling there.
I'm all right. Hello?
Anything you want to add to that?
Well, yes.
I hope so.
Well, a big one. Iraq.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? We went in there and gave those poor bastards democracy, destroyed them, reduced them to third world status, and now they're turning into an Islamic fundamentalist, cut their heads off, cut their hands off, bleed them to death, lunatic asylum. So we may actually be going in there, folks, and this is where Gerald's going, to run U.S. Air Force, they'll call it NATO, bombing missions ahead of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard who are going to come to the rescue of their people, religiously speaking, in Iraq. Tell us more.
Well, first of all, when you go back, and matter of fact, we did a segment tonight on trends in the news, which is part of this subscription to the TrendsJournal.
Wonderful.
And picking up clips from the past was Lindsey Graham, Lieberman, reading Hillary Clinton's words, George Bush, John Insane McCain, how we were winning over in Iraq, and what a glorious victory. It was mission accomplished.
Yeah.
And, of course, it's a disaster. Over 1 million people have recorded been killed.
Yep.
You're looking now in Mosul, about 500,000 people are leaving there. And, again, you know that term, Islamic fundamentalists, militants, terrorists, those are buzzwords of hate. These are crazy SOBs that are mafias. That's all they are in a country that's run by mafia.
Warlords.
And which gang is going to be in control?
Yep.
So what they do is they use this language so that we can take sides.
Yep.
And now we're listening, and this was my favorite clip of the day, and that's Susan Rice, our national security advisor.
Another shining example of leadership.
How we have to help our partner in Iraq, and how we have to stop the terrorists that are on their own turf and supply them with more military and intelligence, and on and on and on. Like, these people know what they're talking about.
Right.
So what's going on here, Jeff, is now you take it to another step. You notice oil prices today?
Didn't see him.
Yeah, Brent crude and West Texas, up over $2.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
There you go.
And the overnight markets, they're up another $0.50. Get ready for a happy summer, folks.
Oh, yeah. Well, they've already jacked up gasoline prices like they do every summer anyhow here. But they're going to have an excuse, you see. Sure.
And that is what's going on in Iraq.
Yep.
So now what you have, and by the way, when we talk about Iraq and Syria and the destabilization from this group, ISIS, whatever they call them these days, ISIS.
ISIS, I think.
ISIS, ISIS, sissy, backwards, upside down.
You got it.
You know, who knows, who cares? All it is, it's a more destabilization of the region that has been caused by the Afghan war, the Iraq war, and, of course, that wonderful time-limited, scope-limited kinetic action, the humanitarian mission launched by our commander-in-chief, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, Barack Obama, against Libya. And now they got all these weapons when they overthrew Gaddafi. Everybody knows that. And it destabilized Egypt, destabilized Tunisia, Mali, Niger, the whole area.
Syria.
And now when you talk about, again, ISIS or El Sisi, whoever it is, they talk about how these phony borders were drawn up after World War I in the Great Game and how they want them changed. So in other words, it's a continuation of war with just new faces and new atrocities and brought to you by the West. It's crusades through that 2000. It has never stopped.
Correct. Oh, 100% correct. What's going on there is we built up all of these lunatic groups with unlimited weapons, and it's only a matter of time. And as you just said so adroitly, we come up with new names, new boogeymen of the week, of the month. This group is bad, that group is bad, they're anti-democratic, they're butchers, they're this, they're that. It's really amazing when you think about it. And it's all being planned. It's all they know what they're doing. What they've done in Syria too, butchered a couple 100,000 people there. These are normal folks. They're butchering white Christians in Ukraine right now. They're shelling 2 or 3 cities at least in the Donetsk area. It goes on 24/7. We don't hear about it. There's a real news blackout in Ukraine, in eastern Ukraine. We're not getting a lot of information out of there. So it's extended. It's spreading, and it's only going to get worse.
Well, I go to the Russian channels, and I also go to the websites, the different Russian news agencies.
That's where I go. But I mean, I'm looking over here. There's no news about it.
No.
Really?
No, there's none.
No. I go to Al Jazeera. I go to Itar TASS. I go to RTV, Press TV, just like you do. It's the only place you can get anything. So, not good.
Yeah, and so what's going on? So when you ask me what do I see, this to me, this Iraq issue could be a big one, because as I said, when you're looking now on the economic front, for example, today the headline story in the Financial Times, and by the way, I still get hard copy of papers delivered to me. And I get them. It's not that I favor one paper or another. I just want to see the information out there and what's coming from the biggest ones. So I get the Financial Times delivered each day along with the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, the paper of record, or as I fondly call it, the toilet paper of record.
Perfect.
Or as we used to say in the Bronx, toilet paper of record. But anyway, the headline story in the Financial Times today was the IMF, the International Mafia Federation, warning of a housing bubble. Front page story. And they're showing, the increases of housing prices from emerging markets to the developed world and how out of control they are. And then all you have to do is the math. And the math is this simple. 0 interest rates, and now, as we know, in Europe, they have negative interest rates. You can't make this stuff up. Oh, by the way, I get these letters. We're canceling our subscription to the TrendsJournal because you said there would be a crash and it hasn't happened.
You're kidding.
Right, it hasn't happened.
People are actually saying that to you?
Oh, yeah. All the time. And so then I say, of course, you're right. How am I supposed to know they're going to keep interest rates at record lows at an unprecedented level in world history?
Right.
How am I supposed to know they're going to even make up a new one? Negative interest rates.
I know.
How am I supposed to know that the European Central Bank is going to be pumping in now some $500 billion reported, much more than that, in loans to banks just to help them out. How am I supposed to know that the United States would make up something like quantitative easing?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't see these things coming. These are schemes undreamed of. But now when we're hearing, for example, from the IMF with a front page story of a possible real estate bubble that's sweeping a lot of the world, you better open your eyes and ears, because they don't put out this kind of information as a, oh, by the way, here's a press release.
So they actually were the ones that said it. They
yes.
gave the warning, the IMF.
It's the front page story.
That's a big note to pay attention to. And over here, I might add, as you well know, Gerald, and many of you listening may know, so-called middle-class housing is exploding. There are more buyers than there are for many houses in desirable areas. There was a big feature story on this on one of the television networks recently, and their houses are going the day they hit the market, sometimes even before the sign goes up. So
you even saw yesterday on CNBC Lloyd Blankfein, well, not so fine, from the Goldman Sachs gang, saying how unprecedented...
Let's just call him Lloyd Blank.
Lloyd Blank, yeah. How unprecedented these low interest rates are, and his words, to paraphrase him, and how at some point there's going to be a cost for money.
Mm-hmm.
So what he's saying is money is cheap. It doesn't cost anything, which is, again, why I'm in gold, because I know it's not worth anything, the dollars, but he's even saying it. Everyone knows that's following this, that has a half an ounce of economic sense, knows that when interest rates go up, the markets are going to go down. There's going to be a crisis in the payback of the loans that have been taken out across the board, whether it's government or personal or commercial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's when you're going to start seeing this bubble burst. People forget, following the 9/11, before 9/11, on March of 2000, the dot-com bubble burst. 9/11 is only a couple of months later.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did was they began to lower interest rates to 46-year lows. I wrote about this, and I wrote about they were creating the real estate bubble, and most people did not want to hear it because they bought the lie, and it was satisfying their addictions. The same thing is going on now. These are you cannot keep interest rates at zero. And by the way, you know who's really getting the shaft is we the people. Because at one time, people used to put their money into savings accounts.
No, we're the worst.
Like under Ronald Reagan, you had a 12% savings rate.
Yeah, no more.
And
we're the worst in the Western world. Yeah.
Yeah, now it's like, it ranges between, 2.2 and 3.8. Because you put your money in a savings account and you get nothing back for it.
Are you saying that home loan mortgage rates now, where are they, Gerald?
You're looking probably around, a 30-year is probably around 4.2.
It's still 4. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Right.
It's still in the 4s.
Now I want to go. Yeah, go ahead.
When I bought these buildings in 2012, the historic buildings, the 1750, the 1763, and the 1774, I got on one of them, I got a 2.85 locked in for 15 years.
Wow.
And I got two commercial loans, one at 3.5 and one at 3.25.
That's good.
I said, this is unprecedented.
Yeah. I thought they might have given you... So when you're talking about
people... Yeah, but then you have to look behind the numbers, Jeff. You're talking about, people, the middle-class homes being bought. 40% of new home sales used to go to first-time buyers.
Uh-huh.
That number now is down to about 26%. So the young people aren't in the markets.
No, they're out of it. Yeah. Listen, I want to say a couple things. I don't even have a clock here to know where we are, so Todd, my director of network operations, and Brett are going to have to help me with the music. But I want to go back to one thing and then move back forward to where we are. When you said that people were writing to you, and idiots, I'm sorry, that's idiotic, to blame you for things that are impossible to predict, that are being hatched in back rooms and elsewhere, black ops crap. Your field is called trends, not surprises, trends. You follow trends. And these people who are criticizing you for not knowing what the evil ones are planning behind their closed doors are stupid. They miss the whole point of trends, okay? Trends are trends. You can look it up. Now, back to where we were. The idea of interest rates and fewer and fewer first-time buyers in this country bespeaks of a country in severe decline. Parents are moving in with their children. Children are moving in with their parents. We are looking at 4 and 5 people living in 2 or 3 generations in the same home now. That's happening. And yet, on the other hand, flip the coin, we are seeing a tremendous push to buy upper, let's call them middle-class homes. These are second, third-time buyers. You're right. They're trying to move up, I guess, upscale, uptown, as it were. But this is very interesting when the IMF predicts essentially a worldwide housing bubble. Now, that can be read as a trend. Where is that going to take us? We're at negative interest now, something I've never seen in my lifetime. This is bizarre. So where do we go from here? What do you think?
Well, that's it. You see, this Ponzi scheme has to collapse at some point.
Yeah.
And it's going to, look, you saw what happened about a year ago when Bernanke announced that they would start the tapering. And all of a sudden, the emerging markets went into cardiac arrest because all that cheap money that was flowing into other countries, it's called a carry trade. You get the money cheap, you go to another country, and then you get higher interest rates when you put your money in those countries. It's very simple. Mm-hmm. And so what happened, the money started flowing out because there was a fear that they wouldn't be able to get their hands on cheap dough anymore. But hear the music. Okay,
very good. This is real interesting. I have my spring edition of TrendsJournal, Gerald's wonderful publication, and I would urge all of you to investigate and subscribe. It is a magazine without equal. It's what Time used to be. There are no ads in it. It's extraordinary. And we have some other things to talk about concerning a very special, wonderful lady who was in Gerald's life for a long time. I want to spend a little time on that, if you don't mind, Gerald, when we come back. The idea of this movie being made, I think it's wonderful. So we'll continue in just a few minutes. Hang on. Okay, let's get right back to it. Yours truly on the phone tonight so far. We have a major power outage in our area, but thank goodness the phones still somehow work. Gerald Celente is standing by, the master of trends. We're talking about a lot of different things. You know, I think most of us, if we're lucky in our lives, have 1, maybe 2, if you've got a great family, older people to look up to kind of anchor to from time to time. Someone older who will give guidance, who will be a lamppost, a light in the forest, someone who will give you early wisdom, as it were, in terms of how to approach this very difficult thing we call life. And Gerald had one like that, a true blessing, a gift. And he was kind enough to send me a book that he had put together about her, I don't know, several years ago at least. been a while. And there was a press release came out this week that something very special is going to happen to honor this woman. Gerald, you want to talk about her for a little bit? I like this idea.
Sure. Yeah, it was my aunt. The Zia, of course, in Italian is aunt, and Zizi, Z-I-Z-I, is your auntie. And Zizi was my aunt, may her soul rest in peace. And I wrote a book about her in 2002. It was a William Morrow book. It was a big book. It was called What Zizi Gave Honey Boy. She used to call me Honey Boy.
Huh?
And, I was going through a divorce, and, there were tough times for me. That's when I began to get blackballed, by the way, from the media at the same time. It was
really?
Oh, yeah. Well, where I mentioned to you about the 9/11, and after that they lowered interest rates to 46-year lows, and I said there was going to be a housing bubble. Nobody wanted to hear that. But what really did it was when I used to be on Oprah, the Today Show, Good Morning America. I used to be on CNN maybe 4 times a month, and they asked me what would happen in Afghanistan. And I said, it's simple. I said, why ask me? Why ask Alexander the Great? Or ask the British? Hey, how about the Russians?
For
I said,
sure.
what do you mean what's going to happen over there? It's going to be a disaster. It'll be an ongoing war with no end. And this is at a time when people are tying yellow ribbons around everything that's not moving.
Oh, God.
And American flags are flying from everywhere. 88% of the people supported that war. So here I am saying that this thing is going to be a disaster. And I'm a trend forecaster. It's not a political assessment. This is the outcome, a cause and effect. And then the Iraq War comes. And Gannett News asked me to do an op-ed piece. It was in all the Gannett newspapers all over the country. And it was about the trend forecast for the Iraq War. I'm a trend forecaster.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, it'll be a quick battlefield victory considering the size of America's military might and the power of it compared to Iraq's. Saddam Hussein will be overthrown, and the country will devolve into a civil war, and Americans will leave after they've lost too many men, too much money, or the will to keep fighting. Bip, that was it. So now I'm going through a divorce. I got my business is tanking. It was a terrible time, but Zizi was there. And I used to go visit her once a week, and we play Scrabble. And she was great. We'd start complaining about this or that, and she'd go, all right, enough of that. Let's have some fun. And she used to cook for me, of course. Peppers and eggs was one of my favorite things. And it's really a true story about love and wisdom in the soul of America. A soul that's gone.
Yeah.
Long gone. And about how growing up in the Bronx and Yonkers and in an Italian family and what it used to mean. And when there was compassion and dignity and respect. And so that's what the book is about. And it's the person putting it together who's leading this. His name is Dominic Ciardiello.
Mm-hmm.
And Dominic is the photographic director for Lydia Bastianich. Lydia's Italy, that
mm-hmm.
very popular cooking show that on the cooking channel.
Mm-hmm.
And they're putting it together along with a couple of other people, Liz Libatori and others. And they just brought in Doris Roberts, who was the star on Everybody Loves Raymond, to play Zizi. And I have to tell you, she is perfect for the part. She even walks like Zizi, and Zizi had trouble walking. She's the perfect part for it. So anyway, they're putting out a movie, and also, of course, they're trying to raise more money to make it happen, at another level. So if anybody goes to Indiegogo.com and the projects, it's Zizi and Honey Boy. And, we would love for you to help make this happen and give what you can to do it. And if you could post it, the press release, Jeff, I'd appreciate it.
I certainly will. I wanted to wait till we got to talk about it so people would understand it better when I put it up. Now they've got a grasp on it.
This is what a woman. And, one of the things, I meditate every day. And at the end of my meditation, it's something I've gotten into about 2 years ago, I thank the ancestors. And as I look at it, the motto taught to me by my dear father, may his soul rest in peace, of the TrendsJournal and TrendsResearchInstitute, is think for yourself. Anytime I'd say something as a little kid, and he'd look at me and give me a dirty look, and in the dialect in Vica Quense, where he was from, it's between Pompeii and Sorrento, he'd look at me and he'd say, Papa wow. Papagalo is the correct pronunciation for parrot. He'd say, Papa wow. He says, stop repeating what everybody else is saying and think for yourself. I got a couple of those as a young man, a young boy, and I realized that, I better, before I open my mouth, I better have the facts. But anyway, so now I thank, and as I look at it, again, thinking for myself, and I'm not preaching, I'm just saying this is the way I look at it. All I am is DNA of them, of all the ancestors. So in my meditation at the end of it, I thank all the ancestors, of course, beginning with my parents, and then my great-grandmother, who I only have a picture of on my mother's side, and then all the aunts and uncles who gave me so much, and I name them all in my mind, and on both sides of the family, and all the cousins and great aunts and uncles and all of the ancestors. Wow. I thank them for all that they've given me, and I ask them to guide and protect me, because I would never want to do anything that would be an embarrassment to them.
What a wonderful thing. I wonder how many people do that. It is said that the Asians honor their ancestors. We don't do that here in this country. Very rare. I've not heard anyone speak like that before of their ancestors. Talk about perspective and true grace. There it is. All right, stand by. We'll be right back in just a couple minutes as we continue. Okay, and we're back. Gerald and Jeff here tonight for the first hour of the program for you. And I open the spring TrendsJournal to the centerfold, and what do I see? Uprisings span 4 corners of the globe. I've been looking at this, and there are about 30 areas of conflict all over the place, and Obama's got his dirty fingers in virtually every one of them. One of the ones that Americans, again, do not hear about, there's a blackout essentially on it, is Venezuela. And what we're doing down there is as dirty and vile as it gets. We obviously killed Hugo Chavez. We've tried to get rid of Maduro several times. The Enrique Capriles, the Zionist candidate, being supported by the New World Order, will eventually get in there, I'm afraid. They're going to grind him down. And why? Why Venezuela? Why not Colombia? All right, why not Ecuador? Because Venezuela has about 5 trillion barrels of ultimately recoverable oil. It's not all perfect grade. They've got a full range of it. Now, back to Iraq. What's the big problem there? Well, we went into Iraq to loot that country of its treasures. Literally, we looted its museums, as you know, and we looted it also of its oil. Now, certainly the Iraqis are selling it, but guess who's controlling them? So we don't want that messed with. And this fundamentalist group, ISIS or ISIS, however you want to pronounce it, is in there now. And they've got a lot of folks who are real interested in following them. Fanatics. They're killers because they're sick and tired of Western imperialism destroying their lives and crushing them under the boot of imperialism. It's that simple. We're also potentially going to lose easy, direct control of the oil game, which all the big oil petroleum giants have set up and put together there. And then Gerald mentioned this talk about redrawing the map of the Middle East. Don't count that out. That's what happened after World War I. That's why the Middle East looks as it is today. It was redrawn as a geographical area, country by country, by British Petroleum after the First World War. And they want to do it again. They're going to do it basically to further divide and weaken any opposition to global dominance and make it easier to go in there and continue to pillage and rob and steal from these people. And now we flip the coin on the other side, and what's happening to Europe? Europe is being flooded, like we are, with illegal immigrants. Boatloads coming from sub-Saharan Africa, many of them sickly, HIV positive, uncountable numbers of Muslims and Arabs from the Middle East being literally transported and put into Europe. Europe's identity is being washed away. It's being diluted, homogenized. These people don't want to be a member of the society they're put in, whether it be British, French, German, it doesn't matter. So you've got the same thing going on there with just different ethnic and religious and national groupings as we have here. We have about 40 million illegals pumped into this country. Now, as you remember, Gerald, Dwight Eisenhower was the last president to realize this problem of watering down American culture and taking this country down. And he put together something called Operation Wetback, in which he successfully removed, it was a couple 100,000 illegal aliens and let them back in on a legal basis, of course, to work. They had a program for this. We have legal immigration into this country every year, which people don't know about. I think it's 1.5 million can come in legally every year if they play the game right. But ever since this talk about immigration reform, the borders have been rushed. And you said something earlier also very prescient. You mentioned that the Middle East is like the crusade. Well, the latest is now children under 12 who come into this country, according to Obama and his henchmen, are not to be evicted. So you've got a children's crusade rushing the southern border and coming across here and being stacked up by the thousands as they're being taken. This is crazy. Everywhere you look, I just looked at your map and I just said, my God, it's nuts.
Well, it is nuts. And you said something about these people that join these gangs.
They're fanatical. Fanatical.
Yeah, well, I want to read you something. I wrote this in 1996. It was from my book Trends 2000, when I called about Crusades 2000. I said the seeds of the new Crusades was sown in areas of Afghanistan, the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and Asia. Throughout the Muslim world, devout masses, politically repressed and impoverished, were rising up against their endemically corrupt and inefficient secular governments with their pro-Western alliances. Imperialism, directly or indirectly, took the blame for the poverty, the lack of opportunity, and the social and moral decay. Disenfranchised, desperate, politically powerless, Muslims in many countries looked to charismatic clerics to change their destiny.
Boy, that's great writing.
I wrote that in 1996.
Wow, right on the money.
And that's exactly what's going on now. And you put yourself in their place. When we took the four corners of the world on that globalnomic spread, we put Niger in there.
Yeah.
And we did that before, Nigeria. We did it before the crisis with the young girls.
Boko Haram.
Right.
Which to me is Boko Haram, as in lots of harem members. It's funny how that worked out.
When you read what we wrote that because of the endemic corruption there, because what's going on, that's a country of, I don't have my TrendsJournal in front of me, but it was like 174 million people rich in oil, and 40% of the people are living under $1 a day. And it's the massive corruption. So when you have nothing, you go toward anything.
Yeah.
And so you get these young kids, just as they do in our country, as they send them off to war, like they did in Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam, in telling the people, telling these troops that they're going there to protect our homeland. So it's no different. It's just a different, it's a different place. The tune is the same. Only the lyrics change.
Same. Exactly. No, you're right. And this is going to unfortunately continue. We look over our shoulders at our past in this country, and we used to have paper ballots, and there was at least a pretense of counting election results honestly. And now we're into the electronic age, and pretty soon we'll be voting on the Internet. They'll tell us we need to be able to vote on the Internet to reduce any possibility of corrupt software at polling places and in voting machines.
Well, I'm in favor of that with a caveat. You have all of these great minds, these high-tech minds. Mm-hmm. If we could bank online, we could vote online, but it has to be totally transparent, open to everyone. So as the numbers are coming in, the algorithms have to add up. The data has to. You could have probably the fairest elections on earth if we had an open system of Internet where everyone could see what's coming out of each precinct, with all of the data coming out. How many people are there, what the historical voting patterns are, et cetera, et cetera. It could be a very fair system. However, we know it won't be because the Bloods and the Crips, better known as the Democrats and Republicans, the murderers and thieves, they won't let us do it. I just want to read you something real quick, Jeff.
Yeah.
I mentioned before about the IMF. Here it is. IMF sounds global housing alarm. Front page, Financial Times. The world must act to contain the risk of another devastating housing crash, the International Monetary Fund warned on Wednesday, as it published new data showing house prices are well above their historical average in many countries.
Gerald, thanks for being here, my friend. You take care. We'll talk next month.
Okay, thanks so much, Jeff.
Thank you. Good night.
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 Jeff.